what is up guys, Nakama here. What makes a good detective game? In my opinion, and this video is also, I'm going to react to this video as well. Game Maker is still good, but I'm not just going to react today. I'm just going to talk about my experiences as a mystery writer because, I did create a video game called Lust for Truth. And it's a very competent detective story. I also used to run a lot of mystery games on Discord with a group. I really, enjoy doing that type of stuff. I also wanted to just today discuss about that. Discuss what I think really makes it for a fun and interesting detective story, detective game, detective group mystery game. I think group mystery games are insanely cool, but we'll get into that in a minute after we watch this video.
The other day, I was watching this movie called Mystic River. It's about the murder of a
Yeah,
young woman
I
called
really
Kate
want to watch this movie,
Markham,
honestly.
but few of them have really scratched that itch for me. It's very rare that I'll get completely involved in one of these games. Really turning the clues and witness statements around my brain as I work towards that all-important eureka moment that defines so much of detective fiction. It just doesn't really happen.
I think that's the thing about this video. It's also very pessimistic about a lot of the mystery games. But I personally really loved mystery games ever since I was a child. You all know Y8 games, right? And also some other Flash games. There's a lot of puzzle and mystery games there too. So, and I really enjoyed playing those. But yeah, afterwards I just became a huge Ace Attorney and Danganronpa fan, as well as a Zero Escape fan. But Zero Escape also doesn't have really much of a mystery gameplay. I really wish it did.
Or in some cases, just guessing. Get the answer wrong in Sherlock Holmes and you'll be told to give it another try. But I think this shows the real game design challenge of making a detective game, because the very act of testing whether the player has figured stuff out can inadvertently give away the answer, which removes pretty much any sense of satisfaction when you get it right. You connected the evidence, says Telltale. Ooh, go me, I'm awesome. Anyway, one way that games have fixed this multiple choice problem, you can inadvertently give away the answer.
Yeah, this is like the most simplest way to make a mystery game. You just make multiple choices, and then one thing I think our video maker kind of forgot all about is the fact that people are kind of not very smart, and detective story and detective work in general is very skill based. If you watch a lot of Let's Plays of Danganronpa, you clearly know that some Let's Players are just a lot more smarter than the others. For example, Nicobe's Danganronpa V3 Let's Play I watched. It was really a fun time, but generally I think Nicobe is a really smart guy, and he was able to guess the culprit of the first case at the start of the investigation, which is really impressive. He almost guessed everything about the first case, minus the other alternative thought routes that could happen. But he guessed the culprit in the case 2, but didn't guess the method. In case 3, ironically, the culprit is supposed to be a lot easier, but he didn't guess. He was overthinking too much. This stuff, requires a lot of brain power. And one of the issues with complicating the gameplay like this is that people get stuck. Think about this. What will happen if a person gets stuck here? Sure, a desperate player will try again. They will just stop and they go back to the game and try again until they get the right answer. But some players will just give up on the game. They're just like, oh, fuck this shit, I can't do it. And some others will just go to YouTube and seek out the answer. I personally think the person who seeks out the answer instead of giving out is a lot more fair too, because if you can't do it, you can't do it. And I also think one of the cool aspects of mystery stories is that it's a very rare combination of where a story and a gameplay kind of seamlessly merges together. I guess there are also a lot of good fighting games that merges gameplay and story as well. But generally, it's really hard to make a interactive story where the player isn't just doing nothing and taking all the information in. It always feels nice to interact with people and other stuff.
Deduction specific point in the game, Grimoire will need you to answer a question about the events at hand. To a fair bit.
Yeah, you need to have the answer, but it's so hard. It really depends on how hard the logic is of this game. I really don't know about this game, but I do know about my own game, Lost for Truth, you can watch the Let's Play is on internet. Oh yeah, I think this is the video. Yeah, yeah. This is a Let's Play video I recorded with a friend, or at least a streamer I know. What happens in this section of the story is very interesting because it's exactly as what Game Maker's Toolkit wants out of a mystery game. So basically, what in this section you're supposed to expose a lie. You don't know how many lies are there and how many lies you have to expose. What you do have is you can call 6 different suspects. Yeah, and also in this game you can like press on the words to know. So yeah, you can talk to your suspect, choose a different suspect, and accuse of lying. This section is so hard. He actually got stuck there for like an hour until he gave up and asked me for clues, in which I gave 2 lied. Yeah, the section is incredibly hard. One of the biggest issues is that you kind of don't want people to be stuck somewhere. That's the weird thing about challenges that feel good, right? Video games are things that you play to feel a certain level of challenge, but at the same time, you also like don't want like the old school Sega type of challenge where you lose a little bit and you die, and you in order to like complete the game, you have to grind it out for an entire month, just hours and hours, sinking hours into it. And yeah, you can like sometimes get stuck on a puzzle and just sink hours into it. Both
so-
kind of did that in this section. Before this section, it was the game was rather easy. Generally, you want an ascending difficulty, like in any video game, mainly because the person is starting to get the ropes at the start of the story. So generally, the longer the game goes on, the better the player is going to be. Like at least in a video game with systems in it. But even in a detective story, like generally, until the case is finished, the person is gathering a lot of alibis and evidences. And generally, the more they read and understand about the case, the better they're going to be. So generally, you want the first questions to be kind of easy, and then it becomes hard. There were very easy questions beforehand, but this section is so hard because in order to just accuse of lying, you can't just say, "Oh, you lied." This present evidence. No, you don't do that. First of all, you have to pick from the 6 suspects, and you also have to choose an evidence, and then you have to also choose the time of an alibi to showcase where a person lied. Yeah, one of the things that makes this specific section so harder than like any other mystery game, is the fact that you also have alibis, and you're supposed to read all the alibis. You're supposed to read all the truth files that got recently added to your files. Then you also have to like pick a truth file and pick an person and point out, oh, they lied in this section. Yeah, there's no way to like brute force this. Any other section of the game you can possibly brute force it, but like brute forcing isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like it's better than being stuck and like not being able to continue the game. Even the player who is brute forcing it knows that they're like not being very skilled, so it feels kind of like shit. You're supposed to like be like a cool detective, but you're like brute forcing the questions like a monkey, and people generally just don't want that. And even if they do want that, that's just a fine gameplay method, okay? Yeah, and then you choose the evidence, which is it is exactly what GameKit wants. Unfortunately, I actually did make a change. I also am starting a Let's Play of this game with Dashi too. And this is an improved version. I also think mystery games and games that have a lot of patches, even if it's not an online game, it's kind of cool. I also want to improve this story. This is version 1.1, I think. So a new thing pops up.
Sure.
So you'll be able to access the hint if you talk to every suspect, and the hint gives out who is lying between this time and this time. That will be showcased. So this is just my way of fixing the difficulty and getting stuck issue without necessarily compromising a person's challenge. Because if a person really loves the challenge and really want to spend time thinking about this and try their might, because even if they struggle a bit, mystery stories are like a once in a lifetime experience. You never experience the same mystery story twice in the same way as you were blind, because when you were playing this blind, you're like your brain starts to work and you try to like solve this puzzle. But like once you finish solving that puzzle, like it's over. You can replay the game out of happiness. Maybe you just really enjoyed the story. Maybe you just want to re-experience it again. But it's never going to be the same again because you know all the answers. You can't just have the same eureka moments like you do when you were blind. So a lot of people, despite the gameplay being hard, might really want to try it out because the eureka moment you're going to get it out of it is special. I made it so that people have a choice now. Another thing I really wanted to do in Lust for Truth was the fact that a cylinder minigame. So you're supposed to move this cursor using this up and down button, and when you make a sensible truth file or an argument, you're supposed to check. And yeah, I think it worked out pretty well. You can make different words and arguments with it, but generally you can make a whole lot of sensible argument out of it unless it's exactly the truth and fits into the context of the story. So I think this is also one alternative way to go about it. The other one is, of course, you present evidence. You're supposed to go there and just choose the evidence. And I also really like choosing evidence in general. I think I used it the most a lot. I really used it a lot in this game. And it's mainly because you're not exactly brute forcing it. I mean, you can brute force it, but yeah, it is brute forceable. If you just feel like don't want to think, just too tired, or just don't think, just can't figure it out, you can always brute force it. Doing so will also take a lot of time, and you will feel a little bit of miserable afterwards because there's 30 truth files. It's a lot different than choosing from 4 options. You're going to choose from 30 options. Technically brute forceable, but not brute forceable to the point that you want to not think and just choose. Yeah, Ace Attorney is also really good. I think I just made Ace Attorney's lying pointing out section just insanely hard. Even the fact that Ace Attorney limits itself is so that people don't get stuck. I actually never really had to get stuck in an Ace Attorney game. The only part that I got really Ace Attorney Trial and Tribulations, during the second case, you have to press specifically Luke's statement, I think, in a specific order so that the story progresses. And that is such bullshit. That didn't matter to the story. I really don't know what they were trying to do with that. I really hated that. I'm not saying that people will necessarily hate it if you make the game hard. At least if you make it hard and you make it fair, then people will realize, okay, I'm the one who is supposed to put in the work. As much as this lie pointing out section is hard, it's not bullshit at all. If you read all the alibis, all 6 alibis, all of it again and again, and you read the truth files again and again, eventually you'll reach the truth, and the answer is not bullshit. It's very clear cut.
And being able to present from a huge list of clues and profiles makes guessing near impossible, especially because the game has a life bar that is diminished if you make a misplaced objective.
Yeah, I really don't like life bars, mainly because you have to reset progress. The games are already kind of hard enough. I won't say Ace Attorney is that hard of a game, but it's still pretty decently hard when it can be. I also don't really hate being stuck on certain investigations because I never get stuck on the trials because there's always a certain logic and certain contradictions you have to point out. Whereas the logic during the investigations is such bullshit. You have to sometimes present a profile picture to someone to proceed the story, and normally only present profile pictures for fun of it. That really irked me in Trials and Tribulations. It's so unclear what you're supposed to, whereas in this section, there is a lie, that the person likely contradicted something, and also the choices you have are very clear cut and isn't infinite like in the investigations where you can do a lot of different bullshit infinitely. And also you sometimes just straight up forget to present certain profile pictures.
You really need to think hard about which piece of evidence to present during each cross-examination. Okay, so this is much better, obviously. And it can lead to...
I mean, you don't know that. It's so subjective. And I honestly think instead of thinking about, oh, this is, objectively better, people just stop being trying to be so objective. You only know how you feel. You don't know how other people feel. And other people's feelings are just as much valid unless you're trying to be an egoist and just completely care about your own feelings. Sometimes, even if you follow your own feelings, sometimes you feel like a challenge is a bit too much. Challenge in itself is such a weird thing, right? Do you guys know from Cell from Dragon Ball, because Cell from Dragon Ball is such an egoistic, petty guy. He basically like enjoys fighting other people. He even lets other people weaker than him like beat him up, give them a chance to beat him up, and then he just beats them up later. So he enjoys fighting a lot. He enjoys challenge a lot. But as soon as someone who just completely dominates him and like beats him up like without any effort, he just becomes so angry, so petty because he just couldn't accept it. Sometimes people's egos do be like that. I'm not trying to call out. I'm not going to call out names, but sometimes you think, oh, I'm so smart. Like these mystery games, their gameplay is so easy, and this expectation of like hard gameplay and the mystery games being challenging. Weird because I can give you like the challenging aspect of a game. If you like truly beat this live pointing out section without any clues, without using the hint, and just sit there and like read the alphabets and do it, that's impressive. You are truly skillful, but there's also like no need to be so proud about it. Like, yeah, you were smart, you put in the work. Other people just didn't want to put in the work or just be stuck there for quite a while. Like people have different preferences. It's
From
just going
Life
to
is
take so
Strange,
much time,
where you
and
need-
the detective story is that it's a story.
Board
It's
to
not
figure
just
out
like
when press
chore,
took
a
someone
work,
are things you
doing
can pick
something so
from,
long as
largely
you're
gets rid of
enjoying
guesswork.
it.
Plus, the game has some nice feedback for when you offer the wrong answer with a small hint that will help you
Yeah,
along.
that's also one way to make mystery games so good.
But this setup is still kind of giving the game away, because while the player
Yeah,
is
but it's fine. You're not here to
Longer
torture the players. And I think this is also one of the harder aspects of people just don't seem to appreciate. Like when I play a mystery game, I don't say, "Ooh, hard games are good, easy games are bad." No, I mean it's a lot more nuanced than that. But mostly I look at the creativity of the game because Danganronpa V3, I love it so much because the mysteries in this game, like Danganronpa 2 also has a really good mysteries, but Danganronpa V3 also has a very consistently impressive mystery game aspect to it, in the sense that in the overall story in general and like the cases themselves, you are like able to guess all the answers, and not just through gameplay, but you can like predict plot points that's going to happen in the future simply by the clues and the foreshadowings that happened in the prior of the story. So if you're really like Giga Brain smart, you are possibly able to guess everything that could happen in this game, and that's a bit of a risk, but like that's good. Like that's good mystery. Like even if there isn't, there's also like I think this is just instead of a gameplay, this is just a pure quality of the story. This is just not gameplay, right? But mystery games are not usually just about gameplay. It's also about how good the story is, because the story in and of itself is a gameplay on its own. Because if you're doing a let's play, you can make predictions and you play with yourself, and then you get the where your prediction was right or wrong. You get a eureka moment, or you're like, oh, I was so smart, like, oh, I didn't get this, oh, I failed out. Like there's that stuff of mentality, and that stuff of mind game is so fun to do with especially if you have a group of friends and you try to guess the story and what's going to happen. Like that's a cool, neat little gameplay that a lot of that isn't actual gameplay. Like yeah, you can like guess the final twist of the game from like the early sections. You can guess every single murderer. Sometimes even before the trial happens. I think the third case of this game is extremely impressive in that the case has a very interesting and extremely creative murder method. Very over the top, but one of the coolest aspects of that case was the fact that you can guess everything about it before the trial starts. Hypothetically, that's possible. It's so hard to do. Yeah, I really just don't like people going, huh, I guessed this case. I knew this plot twist was going to happen. That's why, like, this game is bad. Just because it didn't challenge your ego a little bit, this game's bad. Like, I don't see it that way. If a good twist is good, it's still good, even if you saw it coming.
Not to mention the fact that the game can come across as some condescending jerk who has already worked everything out and is just making sure you are paying attention.
I really don't know about that condescending jerk part, because one of the aspects of mystery games is that it's not just about the gameplay, right? if you can play like I said before, a mind game with yourself where you're technically playing the game, but you try to like predict what's going to happen in the story. It happens in every mystery story, even if it's a game. Like not just the gameplay. Generally, trying to guess the overarching story is the fun of mystery stories.
Feel less like Sherlock.
And like you shouldn't like feel like entitled or like feel the game is just too condescendingly easy if you manage to like not get stuck. Like the game is designed in a way that the gameplay specifically spoils a little part of like the section so that you won't get stuck. Yeah, like whether you feel like Watson or Sherlock, like it really depends on your own abilities because the gameplay has to be in a way that the average person should be able to play it through it. At least if you're trying to make a moderately successful game. I'm not saying you have to do it that way, but if you want to make money and make sure that 90% of the people just can play through the game and not just get stuck and have to resort to watching let's plays or walkthroughs to get through the game, you should better like make the gameplays a little bit easier, but make it also so that certain overarching plot points can be guessed. Like in Lost for Truth, there's two things happening. A murder happened, and second of all, Hori, a girl from the mansion, the victim's daughter, is missing. So you have two mysteries to solve. And there's also some other stuff going on there too. But generally, the missing girl case is entirely solvable from the start. You can like the gameplay won't prompt you to solve it. Obviously, you have to play the game regularly and do all the gameplay stuff. But it's possible to guess how the girl disappeared and what exactly happened in the sequence. It is entirely possible to guess that before that happens. The killing is a little harder than that. I think you need certain evidence that you get mid-game portion of the mid-game, but it's still very guessable.
Connection.
And also, guessing the suspect right also isn't like the most fabulous thing. Like there's like 13 characters and 13 suspects in this game. Like by sheer coincidence, you have a 13-1 chance to guess the culprit right. But it's not. The games are just not about guessing the culprit right. People just want to feel like miserable about everything. Like, oh, I guess the culprit. This mystery is bad. No, the gameplay is still there. It's still like fun to get there, even if you like kind of know what's going to happen, but still you don't know necessarily like every single small detail.
By the way, the most contradictory thing about this game is the ever-changing color of Inspector Jenks's trousers. They're grey, he walks a few yards, they're blue.
Oh, yeah, you're a good detective.
Jenks?
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
I really want to play like a group murder mystery game with Game Maker's Toolkit because he seems like a smart guy. He wants a challenge. He can take it.
Yes.
But group mystery games are the truly like awesome challenges.
For connecting
I really
two pieces
love
of
doing
evidence
that.
as well.
But it's so hard to do.
Highlight two things that are in contradiction.
Yeah, I really want to play this game, but I don't know. I really like story games,
The
not
expiry
just
date on a person's
you look at the visa and like it almost feels like I'm doing a job
passport
rather than
and the
playing a
current
video
date.
game.
Will you
So
be
that's
able
kind
to
of
make
feels
that
like
discrepancy? These systems are both great because the player is no longer responding to the game as such, but instead telling the game that they have spotted something interesting. And in the case of Papers, Please,
until you get stuck, the logic becomes too
you
hard.
to choose
you know?
any two bits of text on
Or
screen.
maybe you just don't have much time. Like generally, you want to experience a story from a game in a mystery game a lot of the times, which is why Ace Attorney, Danganronpa are so popular.
Really awesome.
You're not just trying to like grind out this hard game, prove that you are smart. You're also trying to like
Too many
experience the story and have
combinations
fun.
So this is a good solution for connecting evidence and exposing lies, but it doesn't really hold up for making deductions. Let me explain.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. Like exposing lies and deductions are a thing. Making argument is so hard. I think I actually like talked about this in Lust for Truth. Basically, what I tried to in this section, you're supposed to make a certain argument. The argument itself isn't like the greatest, but it still makes a lot of sense. So you're supposed to like use this to move them around. Yeah, but the issue I think also is the fact that you can move this around and make a logical argument, but also isn't exactly what the game wants you to pick. So that is also kind of the issues with this cylinder game is that sometimes a player can just make something very logical out of it. I didn't like check and think about that hard about like every single option and every single possible argument you can do with this. So that's the issue. Mariam, this is not the correct answer, but you can make it, and it also might actually make sense. It's an okay guess. Sure, all these games are cool and stuff, but like, how many of them are actually like popular? The most popular mystery games I know are Ace Attorney and Danganronpa. Like the Zero Escape series is kind of getting love. I think the AI Somnium Files is also really good mystery game, but I really don't know why people are not talking about this. In terms of visual, it's amazing. In terms of soundtrack, it's amazing. In terms of gameplay, it's also pretty competent too. Like AI Somnium Files, you know that, right? It's also getting a recent sequel, and it's just such a great game. The art style, it's amazing. Like, Uchigoshi, the creator of Zero Escape made this thing, and they hammered it hard. I really want to play this game's sequel. I think I'll download it soon. Maybe I'll make a let's play out of it very soon enough. But yeah, generally this game is awesome, amazing. The most popular mystery games usually have a good story. If you're like trying to make a good mystery game, it just can't be like you solve mysteries and the gameplay being hard. Like making the gameplay hard isn't just going to autosell your. If anything, like I think the hard games, they're kind of like Jump King, right? It's so entertaining watching people challenge themselves and doing seamlessly like impossible tasks. But it's also so risky financially because most people are just going to like fuck this shit out. But it's still really cool,
Turning
dog.
thoughts into puzzle pieces means that you're not using your own logic, but simply using the logic provided by the game. But to get any better than
But yeah, you're supposed to like have a certain idea. I think this is just kind of like an impossible solution to solve. Because yes, you are going to be prompted by the answers and the possible answers. But like, it's fine. Like if a certain theory is presented to you, you realize, oh, that actually makes sense.
no questions and nothing for the player to give as an answer, which is impossible, right? Well, I'm glad you asked. So compare the Discworld thing to this puzzle in the lovely, teeny tiny rabbi detective game, The Shiver. Okay,
Oh
so
man,
you're
this game looks
reading
so
the emails
good. I
of
want
this
to play
guy
it.
who died, Jack Lauder. And if the player had to type that phrase in somewhere, they would have to do the logical work in their head of spinning the phrase upside down to reveal that it's
Oh wait, it's 11037.
actually
How funny.
371. Of course, no game did the search bar better than Her Story. This is very different.
Yeah, I actually played this game. This game is so confusing,
sit
but
in
it's
front of
very
the
interesting. It's a very interesting way to do about
and
it.
watch video clips. And yet, it is the best detective game I've ever played, by far.
Yeah, the issue is that I didn't finish this game.
Hands down.
I probably going to just watch a let's play of it.
Quick primer for those who
Like I really enjoy stories that have structures. At least like characters, people moving around, not stuck in a PC and watching videos, aimlessly wandering around.
have
I kind of
played.
don't like this
Her
aimless
Story
wandering around.
is
Honestly.
ostensibly about
Like I myself, enjoy Danganronpa and Ace Attorney, Zero Escape, and AI the Somnium Files the most. And this story is interesting. It gives choice to the player, and that's I think is really cool.
figuring out who killed a man called Simon Smith. But all you've got to go on is a bunch of old interviews with his wife, Hannah. These interviews are split up into about 300 video clips, but the only way to watch them is to type search terms in.
However, one of the biggest issues with search engine games is that the choice the player has is amazing. It gives you so much freedom. But freedom comes with a consequence in the sense that you can have a miserable experience because you get spoiled on certain stuff. Like that's also one of the issues with multiple ending stories, right? Sometimes like some people are just so smart, they go into the true ending and then get locked out of the game, and like game forcing them to choose a different path because they keep making the choices that go into the truth paths instead of picking the endings that make the most satisfying experience firsthand without getting locked out. And in this game, you can spoil yourself like very easily. I think one of the cool aspects of this game is the fact that every single person has a different experience. But at the same time, like you can have the weirdest and the jankiest of experiences. I actually like typed out alibi in this search engine too. I think I like literally like got out of a confession to a murderer. I think that was a bit unintentional, not the greatest aspect. Like you can like type out some random shit and you might accidentally get the true answer.
Is to type in some kind of search term to see if you get new clips and can move the case forward. And when you do, it feels
But yeah, this there's a little neat trick in the story.
amazing.
I
There's
really
nothing
like
like
it.
about-
But yeah, this game absolutely does give you a lot of freedom. I just, sometimes it's okay to lose a little bit of freedom in video game because video games are mystery video games are stories, and stories are really most of the story. The best of the stories are structured in a certain way and aimed to be experienced in a certain way, right? Her is like really awesome in the sense that it's almost like a free roaming
Lead.
mystery game where you roam
Switches-
freely with the search bar and you can type in anything that get spoiled. Even if you're like truly smart about it, you can like get spoiled and no search terms
that
that will give you the truth very
most
easily.
detective-
Or
Location.
you might fuck up and get stuck there for like how God knows how long. Maybe I should like make a mystery game where maybe I don't know a sequel to Lust for Truth. Yeah, because it is a full like story that has an ending where you have like certain options. You have so many cases to solve. It's a free roaming like mystery game, and you like make certain choices to investigate certain cases. And while you investigate certain cases in certain places, you get clues to solve some mysteries, and you have so many mysteries to solve, and you also get the free roam trying to solve which one first and which one later. So yeah, I think that might be really cool, honestly. But yeah, generally, I think instead of trying to make a game that's hard or hard or too easy, you have to like get rid of like a lot of paranoia or a lot of ego talking when you're like making a video or doing anything in general. Generally, you just don't want to be paranoid about the player being stuck, because if you get too paranoid about a person being stuck, then you're just going to make a mystery movie, a mystery novel. But if you go overboard and just much too want to like mess with the players and their expectations and want to like make fun of them for being dumb and not able to figure things out, then you're going to have certain bullshit logic and bullshit hard sections. I think that's the thing. Like, there's so many sections that's just bullshitly hard. It's unclear what you're supposed to do. That kind of frustrates me in certain Ace Attorney investigations. And there are certain mystery games too, where it almost feels impossible to guess what you're supposed to do. Because it's easy to like make a game that's hard, And remember, I disagree with this person's take that, oh, these are good and these are bad. My take is that nothing is really good and bad. Everything is what it is, and everything, like, depending on how you see it, it has their certain advantages and disadvantages. And sometimes whether something is a disadvantage or an advantage really depends on how you see it. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. There are a lot of people who just really hate detective genre in general. Maybe just they think it feels like a chore, like a work. Like some people think like why play detective games when you could like go to the police and become an actual detective and actually get salary. Like if you become an actual detective and you get to solve mysteries every day, and you also get to get salaries. And also risk your life, potentially get killed by the suspects and criminals. But yeah,
gathering loads and loads of statements, and then when you feel ready to solve the case, you get to pick out the 5 most important statements in your log, and also the suspect's profile, like the person who pinched the pizza recipe. This is a kid's game after all. This is pretty simple, but it actually works quite well. The sheer number of statements you have and the need to present 5 of them means you'll need to have truly understood the crime to be able to input the right
yeah,
answer.
that seems so hard.
Plus, it's
You're going to, I mean, it's not impossible, but you're going to like invest a lot of time into it, and that's the big thing about these so hard mystery
to
games,
just
challenging mystery games.
guess your-
People just don't want to like invest a lot of time into it. Yeah, like the old school Toy Story games, the old school Lion King, Aladdin games, like those type of stuff are very challenging and very fun on their own right. It's just people don't really like to commit all that time into it. Time is gold, and sometimes you can make a hard challenge game and people might enjoy it, or you can make it very easy and people enjoy it.
Lucas Votes.
There really isn't any point in
Upcoming
this is better than
tribute to
that.
old school
It's
mech
just a
games,
matter of
Return
preference,
of
I
the
guess.
Obra Dinn. In this game, you get this pocket watch which you can use on skeletons to flash back in time to the moment that person died. You can now walk around this freeze frame
Yeah,
vignette
this
and
game
try
looks
and
so
figure out
dope.
We admire detectives because they're smart, right? They know the right questions to ask a
But
witness.
the issue is that the
Yes,
detective
I
game
know.
can make you feel like a detective. It's a bit of an illusion. If you're a little bit smart, you know that the game is like giving you like very limited options. You need to be like a detective to be a detective. If you're just not that smart and not that hardworking, then it's just not gonna work out. You're just gonna get stuck. And a
down.
lot of these games, like a lot of these games are, there are also like decently easy games like Ace Attorney is decently easy. Like you can still get stuck with Ace Attorney. Like if you're like really impatient or just not that bright, not the brightest tool in the tool shit. Let's be honest. It's not like everyone has the same IQ levels. We're not equals as much as people like to talk about it. Like we're equals in the sense that yeah, we're living people. We're supposed to respect each other, but there's definitely some things. Some people are just more talented in some things, and some people are just not. And mystery games are just a showcase of that. There are a lot of mystery games where smart players will just figure things out, play the game regularly, answering what the game asks you to do, while also knowing what's going to happen. And there are also some people just get stuck on these stuff. And even if you like do hold the person's hand, like at the end of the day, like people still like read detective novels despite it not having any gameplay. But one thing I really wanted to talk about is this mystery detective Discord games that I play with friends. Yeah, this is like the oldest class trial that I did with friends. Yeah, basically it's inspired by Danganronpa mostly, but people in this mystery game can choose a specific character and they can enter this world, and they also can like solve murder mysteries.